It's Clemson at Florida State, and let's be real. In the offseason, we had this game circled as a potential ACC championship preview, but things have changed a little bit since the offseason. But that said, this game still has to be played, so nothing is decided. We're going to decide it on the field, and here to help us break down this conference clash is Austin Hannon from Clemson 24/7 and Brendan Sindone from Noles 24/7. And guys, let's tell you a little bit more about this matchup before I hit you with some questions. These teams, they've combined to win 12 of the last 13 ACC titles. Some interesting stats. Clemson has averaged 55 points in its last 3 games. It's pretty good, while FSU has averaged just 65.2 rush yards per game this season. I don't make the rules, guys. I'm just reading the full screen here. That is the 4th lowest in FBS. But again, we are turning the page here. And let's start with Brendan. Our Matt Zenitz is actually reporting that DJU suffered a hand injury that could be considered long-term. I know you have some reporting on this as well, but where we stand right now on a Tuesday, have to let everybody know this is recorded on Tuesday. What do we know right now about his injury and availability?
Yeah, we can now confirm through Coach Mike Norvell that DJ Uiagalelei will not play against Clemson. It was the hand injury, as Matt Zenitz reported. And the timeline of that is a little murky. It sounds like at least a few weeks. There's still additional testing that they'll have. Yeah, DJ was at practice on Tuesday, but was not really doing much of anything as expected. So that probably means it's going to be Brock Glenn starting for the Seminoles on Saturday.
Like you said, it's probably going to be Brock Glenn in this game. And Austin, I want to hear how Clemson is preparing for the uncertainty, but I got to start first with Brendan. What will this offense look like with Glenn under center now?
I think there will be a good deal of running with Brock Glenn, utilizing his mobility, something that was not very effective with DJ Uiagalelei for a variety of reasons. I don't think DJ was particularly healthy for a good chunk of this season. Not that he's normally particularly fleet of foot, but even like the power run game element that FSU wanted to implement with DJ didn't really work out much. Brock Glenn comes in with someone who has legitimate speed, like he's hit 20 miles per hour in practice before. I think he'll be able to run the RPO game, both like some of the glance stuff that they like to do with DJ Uiagalelei, but as well as some of the more like triple option-y type of looking stuff as well. So I think that's what FSU is going to try to do. One, to slow down Clemson's really athletic defensive front, make them think, make them guess a little bit more, but then also take pressure off an offensive line that's a little banged up, and to play to Brock Glenn's strengths. So more mobility, more allowing Brock Glenn to run around a little bit, see if that sparks an offense that is in obviously desperate need of a spark.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson dealt with this situation a couple of weeks ago when NC State came to town. Obviously, they had C.J. Bailey, the true freshman start. It was his first career start. So Clemson's been in this situation already this season where they've played kind of a guy they weren't prepared for weeks ahead. And obviously with DJ, that's a guy that Clemson knows very well. So it would have been a lot different, more different of a situation in warm-ups and getting ready for him. But yeah, Brock Glenn, Dabo Swinney said it this morning. They don't really have too much film on him. He hasn't played a lot of football at Florida State yet. Obviously, he played in that ACC title last year. He got some mop-up to MU, but there's not too much to go off of. So it's really just been about how can they continue to play, better defense, because that's kind of been, I think that's a little bit nagging. It's not what you expect from this Clemson team coming into the year, but the last 3 games since that Georgia game, it's been more issues on the defensive end than the offensive end. Stanford almost rushed for 250 yards on the ground last week in Death Valley. So that's obviously something they want to get cleaned up. But in terms of just preparing for the quarterback, I think they're going to go with what they've got on tape so far of Brock Glenn. And then everything else after that is just kind of take care of what you can take care of.
I mean, you pointed it out. I think what's lost in all of this is we miss out on the DJU revenge game. I have to imagine that he will be helping Brock Glenn as much as possible to make sure he gets some revenge against his old squad, but he will not be squaring off against them. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, after the rough loss to open the season against Georgia, the uncertainty around Cade Klubnik, it started to kind of creep back in. But all he's done since then is throw for 12 touchdowns and just 1 interception in the last 3 games. So, Austin, how would you evaluate his season?
Oh, it's been great. It's been over all the expectations I think that anybody's had, unless that you're Swinney or the offensive staff, because all of camp, they told the media, look, this offense looks the best it's looked in years, the best since Trevor Lawrence has been here. And, the people on the boards, the fans say, yeah, we'll see it when we see it. We heard that last year, the year before, and nothing really changed. Well, then App State comes to town, NC State, Stanford, and we got a whole different situation unfolding on offense. Obviously, we've talked a lot about on our site, the immersion of the new freshman receivers. The tight ends are blocking well in the running game. They've obviously got to start running back in Phil Maffa. And then Matt Luke coming in to take over the offensive line has been really one of the biggest improvements of this whole team so far. And obviously, when we're talking about a quarterback like Cade Klubnik, offensive line is going to be a big deal. And so, yeah, he's been hitting on all cylinders. He's into the top 10 in Heisman odds now. So it's a lot of a brighter outlook on what his season's going to look like than maybe it was a few weeks ago in Atlanta.
And certainly Florida State is watching all of this going, all right, how do we get him to go backwards? How do we shut all of this goodwill down? So, Brendan, how does Florida State's defense make life a little bit more complicated for Cade Klubnik?
Let's see. He's been running the ball so well, and mobile quarterbacks have really given FSU fits this year that they've played their best and against Memphis and Cal against quarterbacks who don't run particularly well. So that's going to provide a little bit of a challenge, I would say, for the Seminoles. How you can combat it, I think the best ability that you can is if that defensive line of yours, especially the defensive ends, are active in the run game, high effort. Pat Payton, Marvin Jones Jr. have shown a little bit of signs of growth there, especially early on for the first week or two of the season when mobile quarterbacks gave them a really hard time. You're going to have to set the edge. You're going to have to be physical. You're going to need Josh Farmer to continue to play well at defensive tackle. I think if you can kind of corral Cade Klubnik, a little bit, that would be really helpful for you and kind of make him one-dimensional. Easier said than done, though, given the way he's been playing lately.
Brendan, you wanted me to specifically ask you this question, and I'm very interested as to why. So first off, after a 1-4 start, a 26-point loss to SMU, you wanted me to ask, does Mike Norvell still have the team? Why are we asking that question?
It is amazing to me how quickly it's gotten to this point. And I think why it's important is this is a coach who has built his program on culture, on players' response to adversity, and generally speaking, the season at 1-4, the response to adversity has not been particularly good from a body language perspective. Obviously, from an on-field result perspective, you have freshmen clamoring publicly for playing time. That doesn't seem particularly healthy. So there's a lot of issues, and whether he has the team or not, it's nebulous. I think you can maybe today, week to week, on whether you think that's headed in the right direction or not. After the Cal game, you felt like, okay, it was moving in a decent spot. SMU game, it didn't obviously go well. The body language at practice today was not very good. He does these daily races that have been well documented before against some of the defensive linemen that people have really loved and shown like that guys are willing to compete and stuff. And today only one player ran with them. And that was strange and that was alarming and maybe a microcosm of some issues that they're having with buy-in right now. So I think it's something to monitor. You're only halfway through the season, not even yet. You're about to face a rival who's playing really well in Clemson. Who's bought in? Who's willing to play hard? Who's willing to work day to day? I think those are all things to monitor as Mike Norvell tries to get some semblance of continuity and success on the field this season.
Yeah, I saw that post that you referenced on X. Definitely should be following Brendan's Known if you want to see kind of that behind-the-scenes view of the race. That was kind of jarring to see everybody else just scatter away from him and only one guy go up against Mike Norvell. I do have to say, Austin, you must be very glad because this was the beginning of the season for you, is talking about Dabo Swinney and the future and everything. But as you both know so well, winning cures all, and both of these teams really want to win. We were just so excited to see this game, so we actually simulated it 20 times on EA College Football 25. You're getting a look at the virtual version. A lot of these matchups, I do have to say, were very, very close, but Clemson won 14 of those games. So for each team, we'll start with the virtual winners. Austin, what's the biggest key to pulling out a win in the real football game?
Just taking what they've been doing and taking it and doing it on the road. Brendan's pointed out very well that there's just a lot going on in Tallahassee right now, and not a lot of success. That's not one of the things that's going on. So it's really about just avoiding, the letdown of going on the road and all this momentum they've built up on their home field over the last month, letting it slip away. And if that's the case, this can be a fourth quarter game, I think, and it depends on what kind of effort, like Brendan was talking about, we see from Florida State. But I think the key is just keep doing what they've been doing. They've been really good on offense for the first time in a few years, and that's been really, really, I would say, a fresh, sight for a lot of these fans because they've just dealt with, starting with DJU and then, of course, the first year under Cade Klubnik, the offense hasn't looked like this. So I think they just want to see a lot of continuity and consistency within their performances.
Yeah, and for me, I think really what you need is a handful of things as a 14-point underdog. And honestly, that spread seems really favorable for Florida State. I'm surprised it was only 14. I think it's up 14.5 on Tuesday as we're recording this. But yeah, if you can make Cade Klubnik take a step back, regress even a little bit, take away the mobility, that would be helpful. You got to win the turnover game. I mean, FSU's inability to get takeaways. I think there's been 3 or 4 fumbles. They haven't recovered any this year. Some of that's luck. But then the turnovers with DJ Uiagalelei have been uncharacteristic for what he's been the last 2 years of his career at different places. You got to cut those down, especially if you have Brock Glenn. You will have Brock Glenn starting at this point. And then can you get some kind of spark on offense with Brock Glenn, like running the RPO and some of the option stuff that I think you want to like try to create an identity with some. Like, so if you can go ahead, win the turnover battle somehow, slow down their quarterback and get like even like a C+ effort from your quarterback, I think you maybe have a puncher's chance, but like none of it feels particularly good or hopeful for Florida State right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this game just doesn't have the amount of excitement that we anticipated when we circled it at the beginning of the season. But guys, this is one of those weekends. We only have one ranked matchup on Saturday. So this is when all the weird stuff happens in college football. We can never trust what our eyes think that we have seen, but it'll be an exciting Saturday nonetheless. And thank you both so much for breaking this one down for us. Keep it locked in to Clemson 24/7 for all things Tiger football and Noles 24/7 for everything you need to know about Florida State. These writers, their whole crew, they've got you covered all season long.